Ever heard of the theory of evolution? Of course you have, and the name that springs to mind is Charles Darwin. But what if I told you there was another man, a brilliant naturalist who, at the same time, halfway across the world, came up with the exact same idea? This is the story of Alfred Russel Wallace, the forgotten father of evolution. Unlike the wealthy and well-connected Darwin, Wallace came from humble beginnings. Born in Wales in 1823, he left school at 14 and worked as a land surveyor with his brother. But his true passion was the natural world. Inspired by the travelogues of great explorers, he and his friend, Henry Walter Bates, hatched a daring plan. They would fund an expedition to the Amazon rainforest by collecting and selling exotic specimens. For 4 years, Wallace braved the dangers of the Amazon, meticulously documenting everything he saw and collecting thousands of insects, birds, and other animals. He was building an unparalleled collection that would make his name in the scientific community. But in 1852, on his voyage back to England, disaster struck. His ship, the Helen, caught fire. Wallace scrambled into a lifeboat with little more than the clothes on his back, watching for 10 days as his entire collection, his precious notebooks, and 4 years of his life went up in flames. He was rescued, adrift in the Atlantic, by a passing ship. For many, this would have been the end. But for Wallace, it was just the beginning. Undeterred, Wallace set his sights on an even more ambitious destination, the Malay Archipelago, what we now know as Indonesia, Malaysia, and the surrounding islands. This time, he would spend 8 long years exploring this vast and biodiverse region. The scale of his work is staggering. He traveled over 14,000 miles, often in small, rickety local boats, visiting dozens of islands. He collected an incredible 125,660 specimens, including over 1,000 species new to science. It was here he discovered wonders like the golden bird-winged butterfly, one of the most beautiful insects in the world, and Wallace's giant bee, the largest bee on Earth, which was thought to be extinct for a century before being rediscovered. During his travels, Wallace made a groundbreaking observation. He noticed a stark difference between the animals on islands to the west and those to the east. For example, islands like Borneo and Sumatra had monkeys, tigers, and woodpeckers, typical of Asia, but just a short boat ride away, on islands like Sulawesi and Lombok, he found marsupials like cuscuses and honeyweeders, which are characteristic of Australia. It was as if an invisible line ran through the archipelago, separating 2 completely different biological worlds. This boundary is now famously known as the Wallace Line, and it was a fundamental clue in the great puzzle of life. Wallace had just founded a new field of science, biogeography, the study of how species are distributed across the planet. But his greatest discovery was yet to come. In 1858, on the small island of Ternate, Wallace was struck down by a severe bout of malaria. Lying in his hut, feverish and weak, his mind drifted back to his observations, to the question that had obsessed him for years. How do new species arise? He thought about the ideas of Thomas Malthus, who wrote about the constant struggle for existence in human populations. Suddenly, it all clicked into place. In a flash of insight, Wallace realized that this struggle applied to all of nature. Individuals with traits that gave them a slight advantage would be more likely to survive and reproduce, passing those advantageous traits to their offspring. Over countless generations, this process, which he called natural selection, could lead to the formation of entirely new species. Excitedly, he wrote down his ideas in a 20-page essay, and not knowing what else to do, he sent it to the one man in England he knew was interested in the subject, Charles Darwin. When Darwin received Wallace's letter, he was thunderstruck. For 20 years, he had been quietly developing the very same theory, amassing a mountain of evidence, but hesitating to publish. Wallace's manuscript was a near-perfect summary of his own life's work. Fearing he would be scooped, Darwin's friends Charles Lyell and Joseph, Hooker arranged for a joint presentation of both Wallace's essay and some of Darwin's unpublished writings at a meeting of the Linnean Society of London. And so, on July 1st, 1858, the theory of evolution by natural selection was presented to the world for the first time. When Wallace returned to England, he wasn't a rival to Darwin, but a staunch defender of their shared theory. He became a prominent, if sometimes controversial, figure in Victorian society. While Darwin focused on his scientific work, Wallace championed a wide range of causes. He became a leading advocate for spiritualism, believing that the human mind and consciousness couldn't be explained by natural selection alone. This stance put him at odds with much of the scientific establishment, including Darwin himself. He was also a passionate social reformer, writing about land nationalization to combat rural poverty, and was an early voice for what we would now call environmentalism, warning about the dangers of deforestation and the extinction of species. He was a man of immense intellect and even greater conscience. So why is Darwin a household name, while Wallace is often just a footnote? Part of it is class and connection. Darwin was part of the scientific elite. Wallace was always an outsider. Darwin published the monumental On the Origin of Species, a comprehensive book that sealed his reputation, while Wallace's contributions were scattered across essays and papers. Wallace himself was incredibly modest, often referring to the theory as Darwinism. But today, historians and scientists are working to restore Wallace to his rightful place. He is not just the co-discoverer of evolution. He is the father of biogeography, a pioneering explorer, a brilliant field naturalist, and a deeply humane thinker who was far ahead of his time. His life is a testament to the power of curiosity, resilience, and an unwavering passion for understanding the natural world. He reminds us that great ideas can emerge from the most unexpected places, and that the story of science is richer and more complex than we often remember. Alfred Russel Wallace was truly a giant of science, and it's time we all knew his name. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the life of a forgotten genius, please consider subscribing for more stories from the history of science.